Hey, everybody. Welcome on back. This is the Rubbin' is Racing podcast with Spider and Large. Still burns me that your fucking name is first. It's brought to you by NASCAR. We're done. We're done with the regular season. The final 16 cars are decided. There's 13 winners and 3 who made it in on points. They're representing 10 different organizations. I counted them. That's a bunch. There's 6 Fords, 5 Chevys, and 5 Toyotas in the field of 16. And the playoffs start this weekend. This Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on USA. It's going to be the Cookout Southern 500 from Darlington, right? The lady in black. So everybody tune in this Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on USA. What's up, Spider? How are you both?
I'm good. How you doing? What a weekend we had in Daytona.
Absolutely fantastic. We got Liam here on the ones and twos. Obviously, Spider and I are in our seats. Quiggs is at the Lori Lightfoot re-election campaign center.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's stuffing envelopes for that today. He should be back next week. You guys just want to get into it? I'll get into it. We'll start with headlines. Kurt Busch, 2004 Cup Series champ, is officially retired. He's sort of been on the beach for a while. He's officially retired. He's still going to be a consultant for 23XI. He has 23 years, 34 Cup wins. He's tied for 25th of all time. And like I had said, he was the Cup Series champion in 2004. Spider, what do you think of Kurt Busch? Like, as a guy who's been a fan of NASCAR, have you gone through that stage where you hated him for a while and loved him for a while? Like, what's your take on Kurt Busch?
Honestly, I kind of liked him his whole my whole time while watching NASCAR. I know that might be kind of a hot take, but to me, it seems like both the Busch brothers have seen immense character development. You look at where they were at in the beginning of their career, and a lot of people liked rooting against them. Now you see it almost come full circle. Kyle Busch has gotten more fans than I think ever this season with the move to RCR. And then Kurt Busch, we were in the drivers' meeting this week at Daytona. Shout out to Large for sneaking us in there. And standing ovation for Kurt Busch as he announced his retirement. It sucks that it happened under the circumstances that it did, and it was a concussion-related injury that sidelined him. But that being said, you have to respect what he did for his career. He's got so many wins for so many different organizations, and he really just proved himself as a very well-rounded driver. So credit where credit's due. Kurt Busch, unbelievable career. And, yeah, like I said, it does kind of stink that he is no longer racing, but I mean, that's the name of the game. These guys get old. Eventually they got to hang it up at some point. So I think it was great to see how much appreciation the sport had for Kurt.
Can I just do a shout out? So for people who don't know, like Twisted History, I kind of get something down on paper, run of show. And I don't want to use the word hero, but I'm sick as a dog and I'm doing this. So Spider hasn't seen anything. So all these questions that I'll be peppering him with today, he's not prepared for. And I said, what do you think of Kurt Busch? And he's like, immense character development or something like that. Personality development. What a pull.
I mean, he really did.
I'm the writer, by the way. I'm the writer of this group. Everyone knows. But, man, that's out of your ass. I love that. I love that shit.
He did a great job. I mean, he turned the heels. Somehow he started as kind of like a villain, or like people, loved rooting against him. And now, like I said, everyone was on their feet congratulating him on his career and his retirement. So you have to respect Kurt Busch, in my opinion.
Can I talk? Go ahead.
Spider could probably be like a third Busch brother. Where he's like a hothead, like love or hate, like he'll come right at you, whatever. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you love it.
Yeah, he jumps from villain to hero.
Yeah,
and the job for hat.
And gets W's.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I talk to you about Kurt Busch for a second from my perspective?
Please. What do you got?
We were at the Diplo concert. Do you remember that?
I do.
It was relatively awful because they had it in a hangar that was very spread out. There were a lot of drivers there who had to pretend to be into it. You know what I mean? So Jeff Gordon was kind of bouncing side to side uncomfortably. You know what I mean? I think maybe Tyler Reddick was snapping not to the beat, something very bad. Kurt Busch was in the middle of the crowd fucking raging, right? He was in there.
He was having a good time.
He just seems like that guy. And on top of the concussions, he's got arthritis and gout, two of the things that I have. So I'm really in bed with this guy now. And then I'm going to do a Twisted History on him at some point. But did you know that he was dating an assassin? Did you ever hear that story?
No, I did not. Please
Kurt Busch's
girlfriend,
Kurt Busch's girlfriend, I think at one time had alleged that he had beat her. And then when he had to go to court for it, he had said, beat her. She could have killed me. She could have easily have killed me. This woman was a hired assassin. He said there was one point she got up in the middle of the night, put on fatigues, left, came back hours later in a blood-soaked ballroom gown. Like, honest to God, if you Google Kurt Busch and assassin, it's a wild story that he was dating somebody that he thought was into wet works at some point in his career. So this guy, and to your point, Spider, he was a villain for a while. Like, some people grew up hating him. And then I think he got more and more lovable as he got older, which is similar to me. And now he's stepping away partially, right? He's still going to be a very big part of 23XI. And I get the feeling that if his body would have let him keep going, he would have kept going for a long time. So congratulations on a huge career. Please, I got to do a deeper dive on this. You see the assassin story, right? It pops up.
I'm seeing it, and I'm kind of a sucker for girls I feel like that could kick my ass or kill me at any time. So I see where Kurt's coming from.
You signed me up for the movie Salt. What's the one with Charlize Theron? Where she was. Oh, any time where there's a girl who's an assassin who can kick ass, I watch that shit.
So yep. I saw Salt in theaters when she goes through the lasers.
Yeah.
Yeah, fire. So fire. So
anytime
fire.
there's like, the Alias, remember that show Alias with Ben Affleck's ex-wife or whatever, Jennifer Garner? Sign me up for all that shit. I'm a big fan. So apparently Kurt Busch was banging an assassin.
Atomic Blonde.
Yeah, that's
Mike,
it.
Mike had it over here.
So Mike's in here. He's doing some stuff for us. Mike, you can yell stuff out. It does not matter to me. So Atomic Blonde was the shit. So either way, congratulations to Kurt Busch and happy trails. Second thing I'm going to mention is Legacy Motor Club announced that Carson Hocevar will pilot the number 42 for the NASCAR Cup Series event at Darlington this weekend. So he's that 20-year-old. He's from Michigan. He's ranked 5th in the Truck Series, right? And he's got 3 wins so far in 2023. He has only one start in the NASCAR Cup Series. That was with Spire Motorsports at St. Louis. I think he was one of the ones who had his brake rotor blow up. He was doing very well, but then he had some engine problems. That was back in June of this year. So Hocevar is going to be wheeling the number 42. They haven't announced how far he'll go into the playoffs with them. Like, I don't know if that's his permanent seat for the rest of the year. But what do you think? What do you think of Carson Hocevar? We've seen him a couple times.
I'm curious to get your take on this as well, because this is not a knock on Carson. It just seems interesting to me that he's potentially going to be skipping Xfinity entirely for the most part. He does have 5 Xfinity starts, including the race where we introduced him, the Cabo Wabo 250. But it's interesting to me to see that just drivers, some guys are just kind of given a pass. Like, they're not expected to participate or cut their teeth in the Xfinity series. So he could theoretically be going from trucks to Cup as soon as next year. And that's also a question I had for you, Large. He's made starts for Spire. Spidey sources, Spidey Scoops, has been told that he will probably be in the 77 car next year. But I'm more curious to know, like, if he's in the 42, do you think there's any smoke there? Do you think he could potentially end up in the 42? Spidey Scoops was also told by John Hunter Nemechek after winning the same Cabo Wabo 250 that I just mentioned that he, quote, likes winning races. So I don't know. To me, that kind of says John Hunter's like, if I like winning races, I probably won't have that opportunity next year in the 42. Not saying that he's not capable of winning in the 42, just saying he's in a much better chance for success now in a Gibbs Xfinity car, whereas he might not be winning as frequently, if at all, in that 42 Legacy car in the Cup Series. So I don't know. A lot of thoughts on Carson Hocevar. Part of me feels like he's kind of being rushed up to the Cup Series. Part of me feels like I want to see him. You guys know how I feel about young guys coming into the sport and kind of taking over. Let's get some new faces in here. So Carson Hocevar, very interesting, exciting driver. And I know he's kind of polarizing too. He's got a little bit of the Ross Chastain in him. Some people get upset with him for his, non-hesitation of moving other cars out of the way. But I would like to see him personally in the Cup Series. And I think the 42 right now is a great starting point. I just have some questions. Like, would theoretically, if that 42 were a Toyota team right now, is Carson Hocevar driving the 42 Toyota Legacy car? I'm not sure he is. Part of me feels like this is Chevy going to Legacy and saying, hey, we want Carson Hocevar to get some more Cup looks. You guys have an open seat. Put him in the seat. Let's see how he does. That way he can be more prepared for maybe the 77 Spire ride as soon as next year. Large, what do you think on all this?
I gotta say that I'm simpatico with you. First of all, we've never spoke to Carson. We've never had him on the show. I don't know him. I just know he's a tall kid. Obviously
he's
I know
massive.
what he's done. Yeah, I've seen what he's done on the track and whatnot. But I purposely had mentioned that he was. I think I said he was 5th in the truck standings now. I think he might be 4th. I think he might have hopped Zane Smith. So it seems like that's not even, the hot hand that they're grabbing from the prodigy that they're grabbing from the truck series. So yeah, I think to your point that if they just want to get him in a Chevy and see how he wheels around in the Cup Series, even though Chevy really hasn't supporting their cars with legacy, I think that's a good idea. But otherwise, this is a little bit of a rush job. Listen, we said that about Shane Van Gisbergen, right? Gisbergen, that we thought he was being rushed. And since then, it seems like they're laying out more of a complete schedule for him, where he's going to get to not just be thrown into the Cup Series. And that makes sense. And that's a guy who's been a veteran of obviously a different type of racing for a long time. So, yeah, as much as we like some of these young guns, these young kids, I think that sometimes when you're pushing them, I wonder how it's going to blow up in people's faces after a while. But either way, I mean, I'm glad to see him behind the wheel this weekend, and we'll see where it goes. But that's it. So good luck to Carson Hocevar. I had put in afterwards this little part here where I said Spidey Scoops. Do you have anything that you need to tell us this week, Spider? I mean, I know we were bouncing around rubbing elbows, but anything concrete, or are we still touching the edges on some?
Yeah, so I just want to confirm my report, as reported a couple weeks ago on this show. Brandon Jones would return to Junior Motorsports in that 9 car. That news broke this week, despite me saying that it would 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago. I'm pro Brandon Jones. I know he's another guy that gets a lot of hate, but I would like to see him have a few more starts in that equipment. We saw what he could do at Joe Gibbs Racing last year, and I thought he did pretty good. He was competing for a championship alongside his teammate Ty Gibbs. We all know how that went. My point is, Brandon Jones is a better driver than people give him credit for. You could say all this you want about, he's a pay driver, he brings in all these sponsors. I think he truly has the skill to justify the opportunity he's given. So congrats to Brandon Jones and remaining with JRM, and congrats to Spider Scoops for hitting another one. That being said, we did have some conversations in the last couple weeks that we were at the track. As I just mentioned, I was told from a driver, I will say, that Carson Hocevar is probably, quote, probably going to be driving the 77 Spire Motorsports car next year. So I have good reason to believe that. I would put that at probably a B grade in confidence. Granted, obviously, there's things that can change. The silly season carousel of drivers moving around is still not really settled, but I think that's probably most likely. And then I had one other thing, but I'm forgetting.
We've heard a couple of whispers about Noah Gregson.
Yes,
right?
Thank you for teeing me up. Yeah, so we were hanging with Noah Gregson's good buddies at Talladega, and one of his buddies said that he would probably be in a Kaulig Cup car. Now, I don't have the utmost confidence in that scoop because, like I said, that guy's kind of more of a friend of the program. Sure. Not really someone in the sport or close to one of the teams or a driver, as I typically like to make my sources. So I'll give that a letter grade confidence level C. I don't know. I would love to see Noah in Cup Series next year in a Kaulig car. That being said, I'm not overly confident that scoop is true. So
I think your point is valid too. We're not here to spread rumors.
Right. This is not rumors.
We have our ear to the street, right? And so anything that's floating around, I think it behooves us to mention it. And the way that you give it a rating is fair, right?
Yeah.
Like no one can come at you where I thought you were going to go B minus, C plus. You went C. So that's low on the Spidey Scoop scale.
Yeah, I'm not putting much water in that one. Like I said, as a fan, with my heart, I'm rooting for that scoop to be true. But everything else reported up into this point, including the Hocevar, the Brandon Jones, the Kyle Busch, every scoop I give, I try to have it come from someone very much involved with the sport, whether it be a driver for the same team or someone that works for the driver that might be making moves, or someone involved on the team that they may be driving for.
I kind of wish more people did that. Like Schefter will say something where it's like expected to sign with this team, so then it leaves plausible deniability in a sense. Yeah. I kind of wish when other people gave scoops, they did like Spidey Scoops does.
They had a letter grade on it.
Gave it a letter grade.
Yeah, I'm with you.
More people should be doing that.
That's why I agree.
You could let it fly a lot more. Yeah.
At the end of the year, maybe you guys can give me a letter grade on my journalism and my report card, if you will, on how I did with breaking scoops this season.
Oh, man, I can't wait. I'm going to rip your shit apart. Let's get to the weekend. We had a huge weekend. Okay, so we had a huge weekend, so we're going to recap it all. And this recap is brought to you by our favorite soft drink, and that's Coca-Cola Zero Sugar. Because it was the Coca-Cola Zero Sugar 400 down in Daytona. By the way, the people at Coca-Cola, we got to sit down and meet with, I think, the CMO. We got to see Al again, a bunch of familiar faces, great people. They had brought, I think they said 8 pallets of these Coke Zero Sugars to the Midway. And it was supposed to last. It was a night race, and it was supposed to last until night race. People were scooping these things up like crazy. They were just rifling them onto the ice. Give us 10 minutes. Once they were cold, these things were going out literally by the 1,000. So if you're in Daytona this weekend, there's a good chance you're enjoying a Coke Zero with us, Coke Zero Sugar with us. So anyway, we were there with a bunch of people. We were doing some man on the street stuff. All with Coke. We're having a great time with them. It seems to be like a pretty good partnership for now. And we hope that we keep going with it because we love drinking Coke Zero Sugar at the thing. Is it the best Coke ever? There's only one way to find out, and that's to try one for yourself. So we appreciate Coke, and it was a great race this weekend. Particularly Friday. Like even before we got to the Coke Zero Sugar 400 on Saturday. Yeah, so Friday night.
Yep.
Friday night, we got to that Cabo Wabo race. Justin Allgaier won. He was in that terrible Hellman's Mayo scheme. I wasn't a fan of that at all. So number 7, remember it was looked like the packet that you get in like cheap truck stops to put on pre-made sandwiches.
It looks
I
like
thought
their
that would
product.
be all you.
I didn't like it. I
like
know
their
you guys
product.
think mayo. You think me.
Well, I would say my only disappointment is like when I think Mayo schemes, I think Earnhardt's. So I appreciate that it was a JRM car running it, but I would have loved to see Dale Jr. maybe in the race. I mean, that's probably way too much to ask for, but I'm a fan of the Mayo.
And I'll tell you what, I'm a fan of Justin Allgaier. So we had a great experience with him on stage in, Michigan, right?
Yep.
We did the thing in Michigan with him. So he's a great guy. He finally got one at Daytona. I think that was his 26th race there or something. Photo finish with Sheldon Creed. And photo finishes are great because these drivers, they pop off the net, they jump out of the car, and when they're being interviewed right after their win, it's the first time they actually get to see footage, right? They don't get to see footage of the race inside the car. So Allgaier is there watching the footage on the big screen, and as I don't even know who was interviewing him, he said, did I win? Because it was that angle, because Sheldon Creed had lost by just a hair. And they were like, no, you didn't. And when they showed the right angle, you could almost see it, right? It was, a hundredths of a second. So it was him and Sheldon Creed battling it out. A couple of big wrecks. I think Trevor Bayne was the cause of one of them. But it was a very, very exciting race. Very exciting race to be at Friday night.
That race was awesome. I love Trevor Bayne getting back in the car. I know he had a little hiatus. I thought he did really well with his opportunity. Despite the wreck, as Large mentioned, he was running up front for a good majority of that Xfinity race. And then my other takeaway from the Xfinity race, not the results don't show it, but to me the two strongest cars were Sheldon Creed, who finished second, and then Austin Hill, which I'm not sure where he finished. But there is something to be said about RCR and the Childress engines when they get to a plate track. I feel like in the Cup Series, in Xfinity, those guys are always running super strong and seem to have some of the best cars. So RCR always shows up at Daytona, Talladega. You have to respect the effort that those guys put forth.
And you watched the race with us, Lee, right? I mean, on Friday night. So
I did. I loved the honesty at the end by Allgaier where they showed it, and he was like, "Did I win?" Like by that angle, and then they showed another one. He was like, "All right, yeah, I got it."
Yeah.
But it was just very funny to me.
Allgaier was
right at the end
booed.
where they showed it was kind of like at an angle, and it was on the outside of the track, and it did look like Creed won from that angle, and they were like, "Congrats on the win," whatever, and it was right at the time. It was like perfect timing, and he was like, did I?"
Yeah.
So that was cool.
This is another nuance. Like we were down in Daytona, we were there with Coke, right? This wasn't like a NASCAR event for us. But, once again, NASCAR people really stepped up. We watched it at the start-finish line up in Frank's box. Shout out, I can shout out Frank, right? Frank
Of course.
Yeah. So he basically runs Daytona. So he'd given us a couple of seats up in the box. So we had a perfect vantage point for every wreck, for every restart, for every finish. And if it wasn't for I'm using this term, by its definition, the fantastic crash that had happened in the Cup Series race, that Xfinity Series race, once again, was arguably a better race, right? What these boys are putting on, typically on Saturday, had just been great. But before I go on to the Saturday night race, the Cup Series race, we got to talk about Friday. We got to, we've already talked about the race and all that stuff, and it was wonderful. Congratulations, Justin, all that shit. That fishing thing was fucking awesome. We'd gone down with, you tell them what we did, Spider. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so on Friday, we went down and we were joined with Barstool Outdoors host Sydney Wells, who does a great job of fishing and hunting content for Barstool. We were lucky enough to get on the pond, Lake Lloyd at Daytona. So I've always been super curious about why there's a massive pond in the infield. Large did a great job of describing it. I'm not sure if it were on the show or in the video that is soon to follow, but basically they excavated a giant part of the infield so they could build the banking in each corner of the track that is obviously notorious and iconic at Daytona. So they were left with a giant crater in the infield. So then they decided, hey, let's fill it with water, let's stock it with bass, and that's exactly what they did. So we were lucky enough to go out on the lake on Friday. We had 2 boats. Again, all credit to NASCAR. Thank you so much. Incredibly grateful of the opportunity they gave us. So we had myself, Sydney, Large, Mamba, and Jeb Burton in one boat wetting some line, and then the other boat was our camera crew kind of getting shots of us fishing. Large, you want to tell them how we went from there?
I just found out, Spider, that we had did this on Friday morning. I don't know if you knew this. On Thursday night, it winds up that they had brought in these gigantic fishing trawlers, and they wound up cleaning out most of the fish from the lake. So I think that explains some of the. And that's not true at all, but I think that explains some of the reasons that we didn't get a lot of bites. But I will tell you too, on top of having Jeb there, Ward was there. Like Ward Burton was I couldn't understand a word that guy said. That guy is Southern as fuck. I mean, his son is obviously like a Southern guy and all that stuff, but holy shit, it's very nice to randomly set up a fishing trip. And obviously Mamba's invited to everything. We love Mamba. But Jeb's like, yeah, I'll come by. We fish for a little while before for the team meeting or something. My dad will be there, and his dad was pointing out where we thought we could hit on him, and then hit on the fish. And then Sydney was, and Sydney, by the way, I can't wait for the video to come out, and I can't tell people more. Go watch Barstool Outdoors. We had bumped into Sydney Wednesday night at the Barstool Awards in Boston. This isn't a bonkable thing, and she was stunning. Like, to see Sydney at this thing like in a dress, she was stunning. Arguably the second most beautiful woman there behind my wife. And then you fast forward to Friday, and she's out there fucking baiting hooks and shit like that. She's very, very...
she's got range.
She's got a lot of range. And so what she does is she takes people who are a little bit out of their element and puts them into outdoor situations. And I think it's cool. I think it's very, very cool. So that'll drop in a couple of weeks. I know she's backlogged with some hunting stuff that she had done with a couple of people, I think, in Chicago. So be on the lookout for that. We'll obviously promote it when it finally does drop. So the fishing was great on
Jeb
Friday.
Burton. Yeah. The way Jeb Burton, he's like, Spider, you and Sydney got to come deer hunting with me. Like, you hit the nail on the head. The Burton
bear
family,
hunting.
Bear hunting, deer hunting. Jeb wants us to go get in the woods and get in a tree stand with him and take down some big game. But it just killed me the way that he said, hey, Spider. Like, I'm not making fun of him by any means. It's just really, really funny that Jeb Burton. He's also just a stand-up guy. So to meet him and his dad, I mean, we met Jeb before, but to meet his father and just see the 2 generations of Burtons doing their thing, especially in the race, he had the throwback 22 scheme. So love Jeb Burton. Hopefully we can do more with both Sydney and hunting stuff and Jeb and whatever it looks like, deer, bear hunting, anything, fishing. I'm here for it. So stay tuned for the video. It's going to be awesome.
It broke my heart when he went into the wall. on Friday night. Yeah,
he was running good.
He was having a nice race.
The first stage, obviously, he had the pass-through penalty, so him and his teammate Jordan Anderson, team owner, I guess you want to call him, were running kind of off the pace. There was there was the pack, and then there was maybe like 6 or 7 cars on their own little mini pack on the other side of the track. So he closed that gap. He made it back up to the lead lap, and he was almost in contention there at the end. Unfortunately, an untimely wreck, but gotta love Jeb Burton.
You know what he did to me too, by the way, Jeb Burton?
What's that?
I was casting off the front of the boat, and so I don't know. I think he threw his line in front of mine on purpose. We were desperate for a bite, so then all of a sudden I hooked him, like I hooked his line, but I couldn't tell. He was in the back of the boat, weird angle, and he knew right away that I did. So he started to fight me a little, and so I'm like, oh shit, I got one on, and he got me so excited, and Sydney ran over and he totally took the piss out of me. Son of a bitch. So I'm kind of glad he went into the wall, I guess. Yeah. But so that was it. So that'll hit whenever fishing Spider and Large Jeb Burton Mamba in Daytona infield. All right, so then let's get to Saturday. Before we get to Saturday, let's remind everybody that Cabo Wabo Tequila is the official tequila partner of NASCAR. And it's not just tequila either. It's damn good, thick cut, 100% Blue Weber agave tequila. I have that burned into my brain because that's what it is. Cabo Wabo Tequila and NASCAR are teaming up to bring thick-cut flavor to race days at home and at the tracks. The Cabo Wabo Smoke Show is Cabo Wabo Tequila's signature cocktail made for the NASCAR partnership. Spider and I had made a bunch of them when we were in Michigan, and they are delicious. Cabo Wabo Tequila is bringing bold flavor to the racetrack. You can go to CaboWabo.com to learn more. You must be 21 years or older, and you can get the Blanco, the Resposado, or the Anejo. They're all delicious, and they're all perfect for sitting down, sipping as you're enjoying a NASCAR race. So go to CaboWabo.com to learn more. You must be 21 and up. Thank you, Cabo Wabo, for being one of our sponsors. Alrighty,
Shout out Cabo Wabo.
Look at Spider rocking the helmet, by the way. Yeah, that's not easy,
tight.
right? By the way, I had asked for that helmet, and then they were like, put it on, and they knew it wasn't going to work.
Thing's a little tight on my head, Large.
A little tight, yeah. It wouldn't have come anywhere near me.
I think you didn't want to ship it, and you were like, Spider, you can have it.
Is that what it was?
You couldn't get it back on your suitcase, I don't think.
Yeah, probably.
Is it?
Yeah, maybe. That's it.
Yeah.
Why? Were you accusing me of stealing the helmet?
No. Oh, no. I was saying how I tried to put it on my head, and it was impossible. Like, honestly, it was comical.
You were like, all right, Spider, this is yours. I already asked for it.
I think so, yeah.
You were like, I got a free thing. Now I'll give it to you. Yeah.
But it would not come anywhere near me. All right, so Saturday, another great race day. By the way, Saturday races, how sweet are they, man? That felt good waking up on Sunday, going home on Sunday and stuff like that. And the night races, because Daytona was hot. It was hot this weekend, and it was I don't know, it was relentless for a fat bald guy. And then to have that temperature drop 10, 15 degrees as the race is starting, it was just absolutely beautiful.
It was sick.
Yeah, so the race was clean. There was only 3 cautions, but 2 of them involved huge wrecks. It's a bad day to be a Ryan. I'll mention that in a little bit. Martin won stage 1. Brad Kay was the stage 2 winner. Then he started doing his donuts. I will talk about that in a sec, too. And then Chris Buescher wins another one. He wins 3 out of 5 races. RFK finishes first and second for the first time since 2014. And one of the things that Chris had said on his radio as soon as he crossed the finish line was tell Brad thank you. Because Brad Kay was setting blocks and giving pushes and doing what an owner and a teammate probably should do. But I'm going to ask you right now, Spider, did Brad Kay, I don't know how to word this. Did Brad Kay fuck me on purpose? You know, I had him to win.
Yeah.
By not honestly, at least going for the win.
I said it, I think, a couple weeks ago on this show, and I remain of the opinion. It feels to me like Brad Kay is, like, willingly taking a back seat to Chris Buescher, which I kind of understand now. I mean, Chris Buescher, 3 wins. He looks like he's a legitimate title contender, or at least on his way to there. So I think Brad Kay is kind of prioritizing Chris Buescher's success. Brad Kay owns the team. He's had a career full of success, and I think he's at a point where he just wants to see his team succeed to the best of their ability. I do understand where you're coming from, and I probably would have been upset too if I had Brad Kay and he just kind of like didn't make a move there at the end, or he allowed Chris Buescher to run away with it. But from an outside perspective, you kind of have to respect what he's doing if that's truly what he's doing. I am of that opinion. It seems like Brad Kay could have been more aggressive there if he wanted to, and he wasn't. So that to me is proof that he is prioritizing the success of his teammate Chris Buescher, which I respect and appreciate, and I'm excited to watch kind of the Chris Buescher success tour. You know, he's been incredible as of late, and it seems like RFK has found something that a lot of these other teams are missing. So it's been awesome to watch.
So we can agree that Brad Kay is arguably more talented than Chris Buescher, or as talented as Chris Buescher. I know Chris Buescher has nothing but momentum, and he's really proven himself to not be a one-trick pony. Certainly winning 3 out of 5, there's something special about Chris Buescher. There's also something very special about the veteran and Brad Kay, right? So, I think we can agree that his car was fast. His car was fast enough to make the run there. So there is no other reason except that he played owner or didn't want to jeopardize making a mistake to where they would both then lose, right? But there's also that argument that I had a lot of money on him, right? So there's that argument. But 2, he hasn't had a win in 2 seasons, right? Brad Kay. So it's one of those things where I don't know. I'm a little bit torn on this one. I think that I'm going to step aside because it just breaks my heart that I had another P2 finish on a Brad Kay to win ticket. So whatever. And then there was a wild scene, not a wild scene, but when we went red flag after the big wreck, Brad Kay starts driving around in a circle, right, where all the cars are stopped. He starts driving around in a circle. I don't know if you had caught any of the radios while he was doing that. He thought that his car was on fire. There was some smoke coming into the car, so he started to drive around so some of the air intake would put out a small fire in his car. Yeah. None of the other cars knew about this. So, like Ross Chastain on his radio had said, you know, what the hell is Brad doing? He looks like my dog when he gets the zoomies. You know, sometimes when your dog is a little bit coked up or whatever. And everyone else was like, what's going on, Brad? What's going on with Brad? And people were saying that it might have actually been a red flag infraction for moving his car, even though he didn't better his position. And I hope they don't give him any kind of fine for it. That would be silly. But just a wild little scene to see everyone kind of stopped and all this stuff going on. And this was way away from the wreck and whatnot. And Brad is doing essentially donuts in the infield trying to put out a fire in his car that no one had seen. But either way, like I said, RFK has all the momentum in the world going into this playoffs, but I would have loved to have seen Brad Kay grab his first win. I would love to have seen that. All right, so now we're looking at Martin Truex Jr., guy who missed the playoffs last year, and he locked up the regular season winner 2023 after stage 2. So congratulations to Martin, and I would like to think that the difference was in 2022, I bet on him every week. 2023, I made a vow that I wasn't going to bet on him, and now he's a regular season winner. That has to, I mean, I'm the exact jinx type thing. This is working in his favor, so he better send me some merch. Bubba's in. You know, only 3 teams out there have 100% of their drivers in the playoffs, and one of them is 23XI with Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace. So Bubba Wallace, who is on the bubble, is in.
How many teams did you say?
3.
So it's 23XI, RFK, and then who's the third?
Is it the
Stenhouse car? He's a one-car team.
Darty? Yeah, right? I guess that would be the third, yeah. And then Chase is out, right? So that was the big storyline coming in, you know, who's in, who's out. So Chase finishes P4. He's out of the playoffs, and he's just had a terrible season, right? Like, we can look back on this. I don't know if any of the greats, because I'm not that much of a historian, I don't know if any of the greats made it to the playoffs every year that they had raced, but Chase had a legitimately terrible season. Like 6 races he was injured. You know, 1 he was suspended. He wrecked in Michigan. He ran out of gas in Watkins Glen. Like, he hasn't had a lot to build on. And yet I still think that he's the guy, and I think most people agree with me, that could steal one in the playoffs, where he does come away 2023 with a win somewhere in the playoffs. But we'll get back to what I had started with, saying it was a tough night to be a Ryan. First, it was Ryan Blaney. Kyle Busch had bumped Brad right before Chris Bell had bumped Ty Gibbs. Ty Gibbs got loose. He turned down the track. He hooked Blaney, and Blaney hit the safer barrier hard. There were 16 cars that got collected in that wreck, right? That was a big wreck. And this is the second time this season that Blaney had one of these head-on crashes. If you watch the cab cam, right, and you've seen him, he hit his head off of the steering wheel. And it happened so goddamn quickly. I thought that was more of a damaging blow than the second crash of the night, which had happened with Ryan Preece. When Ryan Preece had all of a sudden, I think he got a bump from Eric Jones, then he got loose, and then as he got loose going towards the infield, he got hit by Chase Briscoe, kind of drove right through him. But then when Ryan Preece had hit the grass on the infield, he began to, almost comic book style, started to turn in the air and did 10 complete flips. I mean, I counted them, 10 complete flips. And I can tell you right now, even though the Blaney thing was difficult to watch on replay, being live at Daytona and seeing that car go in the air, like you and I were sitting next to each other at the time, that was sobering. Like, I didn't think he was going to walk away from that at all. That was scary as shit, Spider.
Yeah, that was very scary. And I know we were joking about it in the box as well, that I often say a lot of these guys I consider like friends of mine. But Ryan Preece, I was like, genuinely, I didn't like watching what happened to him. We exchanged texts casually, and I'm always wishing him, pulling for him, sending him good luck and everything. The fact that happened, like you said, Large, very sobering moment. My biggest takeaway, however, was that we saw two of the pretty gnarlier wrecks that I remember seeing in recent history. Priest's flip being the worst I think I can ever remember seeing in a NASCAR race. They both walked away. They were both fine. And to me, that's a testament to the next-gen car, the safety innovations that NASCAR makes. Say what you want about the racing or at certain tracks and not being as competitive as it previously was, but if those cars can withstand that impact at a track like Daytona and the drivers be fine, aside from, like doctor evaluations after the fact, I think that's a massive, massive win. So credit to the engineers and the NASCAR team. I don't know. Safety is always a top priority, and they answered the bell. The cars held up. So I do agree it's a little concerning to see the cars flip like that. Especially with the roof flaps and everything, a lot of time and resources goes into engineering these cars so they don't get airborne. But my point remains, God forbid, it's racing, anything can happen. So when they do get airborne, to be able to hold up that well, I think is a testament to the efforts they put in keeping our sport safe.
And he tweeted afterwards, so he did get out of the car under his own power, was then put onto a stretcher and brought to the hospital. I believe he tweeted from the hospital, "You want to be a race car driver," this is a quote, "You want to be a race car driver, you better be tough." And then he gave some credit to his car and closed the tweet by saying, "I'm coming back." So that's a real tough guy thing to say. And the update is he's still listed to drive the 41 this week. As of this morning, we haven't gotten any indication that the team is looking for someone to substitute. So, now in retrospect, we could talk about how fucking awesome it is to see on the replays, knowing that the guy had gone out of it. But I'd never seen anything like that in my life. I certainly haven't seen anything like that live. And it was, I guess I'll use that word again. It was absolutely sobering. Larry McReynolds had made the point afterwards. He's been a big proponent of getting rid of grass, because I think the casual viewer would say, hey, flipping on grass is probably better. But it's the grass that causes those flips. Like, if you just go straight onto the grass, obviously you're just going to have a bumpy ride. But once your wheels turn and it grips into that, anything that has give, like grass or AstroTurf, that's what sends you airborne. So the grass is to blame here to a certain degree. You think there's a world where we don't see grass on the infield of Daytona, right? Like that, again, we'll say iconic, where they get to spray paint all the sponsors and all that stuff. I mean, it just seems like it's part of it. But if it's a contributing factor to somebody going 10 feet in the air and flipping his car 10 times, then they got to get rid of that shit,
Yeah. I don't know enough about the alternatives I do see people constantly commenting that the grass is an issue. Yeah. So I don't know where I stand in regards to this issue. Part of me, and this is selfish as hell, like I love the way the track is now. I think the grass is sick. And then also one of the coolest parts about going to Daytona is that they allow fans on the track, on the grass. There's concerts. So like that stuff. The fans, I think, win from having the grass there. The drivers, on the other hand, and you ask Ryan Preece, he'll probably tell you pave the damn thing. I'm not smart enough. I'm not an engineer. I don't know what would happen or what the differences would be if that were AstroTurf or asphalt or something different than the grass. But I think it might be worth taking a look at, especially, like I said, they put a lot of time in engineering these cars so they remain on the ground and do not get airborne. So if the grass is truly to blame for that, then it might be worth taking a deeper look.
I'll tell you what is worthwhile, whatever they do with those safer barriers.
Yeah.
Because that was an eerily similar crash to what had taken Dale Sr.'s life, right? That Ryan Blaney had been in. And again, he had walked away. I don't even think he has a concussion. But what do you think's a worse physically? What do you think was harder on the driver? Honestly, do you think that head-on crash into the wall by Ryan Blaney going 190 miles an hour, or do you think it was the 10 flips in the air that had happened to Ryan Preece? What do you think's worse on the body?
This might be a hot take, but I'm gonna say the Ryan Preece flipping out of control. To me, that's just like an immense amount of energy just being dispersed uncontrollably. You have no idea where it's going to go or like what's happening. You're pretty much just along for the ride at that point. And some of those flips, like Preece got airborne, and not only did he do one flip, but he would flip like 4 times at once before hitting the
dropped.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was like a trampoline.
It was insane. So to me, that is more unpredictable. But I'm also not discrediting the hit that Ryan Blaney took. And as you said, the safer barriers are another testament to the great innovations that NASCAR has made in keeping the sport safe. Having the styrofoam or the barrier, I don't even know, the rubber, styrofoam, whatever it is that separates the original wall and then the wall that he made contact with, really did a great job of absorbing that impact. And, I mean, while it was sketchy as hell, it was predictable that he was going into the wall. You never want to see it, but you knew where he was going. Whereas with Preece, it's like, holy fuck, he's going God knows where.
And like, I was waiting for it to end. I was like, when is he going to stop?
He could mash on the brakes and he would just be upside down, nothing happening. So for that reason, I think the Preece one was probably a little bit more sketchy, but I'm certainly not discrediting Blaney going into the wall that hard at that speed either.
I think Preece's was undoubtedly scarier, but I think going from 190 to 0, even with, and if you watch the safer barriers and if you watch how the front of this next-gen car had collapsed, it certainly helped, right? It didn't put all of that kinetic energy on the driver. But, man, I think for that one thing, I'd rather have that, as Preece is flipping, all of that energy is slowing, dissipating, even though it didn't look like it. So perhaps it was easier long-term on his body. It just turned into more of a carnival ride. Yeah. Terrible carnival ride.
Yeah, the Preece crash, if you watch the replay, Junior is saying, like, if that was an older car, like in the 90s, whatever, where you were talking about the grass, where he's like, they do so much to keep these cars on the ground right now. He basically would have been dead.
Yeah.
Like, if it was 20, 25 years ago or something.
Right.
More or less. Like, he didn't say that directly. Right. But, like, it's crazy to fucking flip 10 times in the air and then just be like, yeah, this guy just walked out of it.
I'm going to put out in a blog that'll coincide with this. I'm going to put out some of the worst wrecks in NASCAR history, just to have people have some comparison to this. And there is no apples to apples comparison on crashes because each one is different. And obviously you'll have people who are going over fences or people who are being hit by other cars and stuff. But I think that even any NASCAR historian would rank this with one of the more, and again, I'll use this word as its true definition, fantastic crashes ever. I'm going to go back to just revisiting this. Saturday night races, I love them. And I know that as we get into the playoffs, we're going to have one more Saturday race only. I think we have a Saturday race coming up at Bristol. So in a couple of weeks, we'll have the Bass Pro Shops night race at Bristol. But otherwise, everything else will be run on the traditional Sunday schedule. We've had races this season on Saturday this weekend. We've obviously had a chunk on Sunday. And we've also had, I think, 4 on Mondays because of rain delays and whatnot. What's your favorite day to watch a race?
This is going to be a hot take. I kind of love the Monday races.
You said that. You did. When that happened, you were a big fan of them.
Yeah. I mean, granted, it's under shitty circumstances as to why they're occurring, but it is really, really awesome when you have, NASCAR on midday at the office, and it's like, hey, it's kind of like March Madness vibes. The first couple rounds of March Madness when everyone's working but watching. So that's kind of the vibe I got. And to me, for what we do, Large, we're trying to get new fans and new eyes on the sport. That is one of the best opportunities to do so. If you work in a place where you're allowed to throw it on TV and kind of tell your colleagues, like, hey, put some money on this guy, or like Monday Martin's, the ongoing storyline, look for him to win. To get everyone focused on it that otherwise wouldn't really pay attention to it is the reason why I love Monday racing.
I mean, I don't dislike Sundays. And like I said, I want NASCAR to become the Easter must-see TV. You know, how everyone sits in front of, watches the NBA on Christmas perhaps, watches the NFL on Thanksgiving. They have that wrapped up. Like to have Easter Sunday NASCAR, I think is great. But this Saturday night thing really appeals to me. And I'm trying to think about, as NASCAR now has to compete with football starting up, right? So... and the majority of NASCAR fans are from the South. I think college football, which primarily runs on Saturday, a lot of college football is also concentrated in the South. I don't know what the right answer for them, that where they would be able to compete with football in their most advantageous way. I don't know what night is best, what day or night, and what day is best for them. But man, Saturday night was fucking great. And I can't wait to run that back if we go back next year. All right, let's talk about the playoffs. So for people who are new to this, the playoffs, we have 10 races left. We have 16 drivers who are in the playoffs. So we're going to run 3 races, and then we're going to eliminate the bottom 4 drivers. Get you down to 12. So then the round of 12, we'll have 3 more races, and then we'll get rid of another 4 drivers. So then we'll have the round of 8, where there'll be 3 more races, and we'll get rid of 4 more drivers, leaving 4. So that was 9 races to get down to the final 4 drivers, and then those final 4 drivers will compete in a full field, right? It's not just the 4 of them, in a full field in the championship race on Sunday, November 5th at Phoenix Raceway, which I believe we're going to be at. But for the time being, this first round of 16, we have the Southern 500 in Darlington, as we had mentioned. Then we have the Hollywood Casino 400 at Kansas Speedway. Then we have the night race at Bristol. And then after that, we're going to be missing 4 guys. Spider and I are going to give some ideas of who we think are going to be cut and who we like to be the final 4. But before, let's just wrap up what we had seen at Daytona, Spider, and we're going to do the little paint scheme thing. Because I will tell you right now, we talked about it. Jeb Burton and his dad's 22. I love everything about that. I loved everything about it. And then I know that you loved Bubba's paint scheme. The Luke Combs paint scheme was hot as shit. Yeah. But there are some great paint schemes coming up this week. Does anything jump out at you as we go into the Southern?
I'll just focus on last week. So you mentioned the Luke Combs, Bubba Wallace 23 Columbia car. I love that one. And Bubba answered the bell. He made it into the playoffs, so it worked out. And he had a fast car, as Luke Combs would sing. Sorry if that's a cliche, cringe joke, but I loved it. And then also on the Xfinity side, I love the Wawa cars. I love that there were 4 of them. And that seemed like a cool marketing push, all different colors, all different drivers. And then also one other from the Xfinity, Sam Mayer, standing room only, Tim McGraw, Xfinity 1 car was cool. I love that we had 2 country cars. As a country music fan, I love seeing the artists get involved. So we had Luke Combs and Tim McGraw in Cup Series and Xfinity Series respectively. So I like both those cars. And then maybe finally, I know you didn't like this one, but I did appreciate Alex Bowman's 48 Fortnite car. I thought it was cool. Get like whatever video game we saw Tyler Reddick do the Rocket League one a couple weeks ago. Whatever we can steal from like the younger generation that they're really obsessed with, whether it be Fortnite or Rocket League, and try to bring those fans in and convert them, I'm here for. So Fortnite's obviously a massive, massive game. Bowman didn't make the playoffs, but I still think his car looked pretty good. So I like what they did with that.
Spider, I have to talk about the preview of this week's Ricky Stenhouse car. Ricky, by the way, Ricky Stenhouse should just be mentioned every time we talk about paint schemes because he consistently has the best. But that almost solid green Irish Spring paint scheme is absolutely tight. That could be one of my favorite of the year. And you know that I'm a Ricky Stenhouse simp, certainly a stan. But this new one that he's running here with Irish Spring, I think is one of the nicest ones that he does. So, and there's a couple more that we can mention. I don't know if you want to save them for next week, but I have to throw out that if you guys are watching this weekend, keep an eye out for the 47. It is clean. There's a gold shamrock on it. It's awesome.
I don't know why that's always when there's an outdoor shower. That's always I don't know why that's always the soap in an outdoor shower. I can't explain why, but like I've never had it inside. I don't know why.
It's a wild take, but it's absolutely right. Yeah. Irish Spring, by the way, showering outdoors.
It's the best. It's the best.
It's the greatest thing in the world, right?
Ever.
Yeah, I mean showering in general is very good, and I recommend everybody do it. But showering outdoors is great, and with a bar of Irish Spring, man, that's living. That is fucking living. So that's one of the reasons why I'm pulling for Ricky this week. Let's preview Darlington. It's brought to you by NASCAR as usual. They put together a hell of a season, regular season, and now it looks like we're going into a hell of a postseason. So the Southern 500's at the track Too Tough to Tame, place where you get your Darlington stripe. Eric Jones won here last year in the playoffs, and Byron won here earlier this season. There are a couple of drivers pulling double duty this week, including Kyle Larson, Denny, and Ross Chastain. This is where we're going to talk about it, Spider, as the preview. Who in the top 16 has no shot, right? Like, who in those playoff drivers do you feel has no shot? Who do you think does not make it to the round of 12?
Well, I'm going back and forth on my first four out, but I will say the one that's consistently in there is my guy Ricky Stenhouse, and I don't say that as criticism of Ricky. Obviously, you guys know the schemes and the golfing and him coming into our office with the Daytona 500 trophy. We're big Ricky Stenhouse fans, but I think he's got his work cut out for him, and he's comfortably at the top of my list for the first four out. I hope I'm wrong. I'd like to see him make some noise. And then also I'm looking at a guy that's going to – this is tough for me to say, but I think Kevin Harvick in the 4 car has been struggling. He's one of, I think, 3 playoff drivers with 0 wins, and I don't know. He's hasn't had the speed. I'm looking at guys that seem to have the most wins or the most success, and Harvick, despite making the playoffs, is kind of at the bottom of the list there. So I'm taking Ricky and Harvick as first 2 out, and then I'd probably round out. This is where it gets tough. I mean, Bubba Wallace, Michael McDowell, they got good tracks upcoming. They've got tracks where they've performed at.
Those are the bottom 4: McDowell, Stenhouse, Harvick, and Bubba. Those are the bottom 4, 13 through 16.
I would probably throw a curveball in there and throw in my guy Ross Chastain in the 1 car. Seems like Trackhouse is really calmed down, quieted down, cooled off, whatever you want to call it. Ross just doesn't seem like the driver we saw last season. I don't know. He has he's got a win, but he just doesn't seem like the Trackhouse success we saw last season. Even Suarez won last year. So for whatever reason, it seemed like Trackhouse regressed a little. And then rounding out my first 4 out, this is really tough. Maybe McDowell. I mean, he has 1 win. He's looked really good, but I don't know. A lot of these guys just seem to have better teams, better equipment, better cars, which is why I'm a little skeptical. And I know a lot of people are probably going to say Bubba Wallace first 4 out, but you look at the tracks. Kansas, he won at last year, and he's looked good. I mean, let's see. What was it? Cook at the Southern 500 last year, he finished 9th.
Yeah, he's top 10 at Darlington, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not going to keep Bubba Wallace out of it. It probably would be McDowell, Chastain, Harvick, and Stenhouse, yeah. So those are my first four out, regrettably. And Large, what do you got?
I think that Blaney, outside of hitting walls, Blaney's just had a tough season too. Like honestly,
I was gonna include him, but I couldn't do it. I'm pulling for him too hard.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing too. Like, it's a heartbreak to say that, but there have been drivers that have become invisible. Nobody has more momentum right now than Chris Buescher. Winning 3 out of 5 going into the end of the year, nobody has more momentum than Chris Buescher. I got to be honest with you, Bubba Wallace seems to have some momentum too, just because he's been outperforming in order to get that 16th spot, right? So, like, Brad Kay has momentum even without a win. You say the 3 drivers without a win this year is Brad Kay.
Well, that's why I included him.
Bubba. Yeah.
I couldn't, despite what I said about winning races, that being my benchmark. Grain of salt there, because Brad Kay gets a pass in my book. 0 wins, but as we said earlier, he could have potentially won this past weekend, and we've been saying for weeks how close RFK is, and they're knocking on the door. So I think Brad Kay makes it through the first round.
I'm going to say that I'm probably going to go with you with McDowell. I think I'm going to take McDowell to not make it through to a round of 12. I think I'm going to throw Blaney in there also. I'm very tempted to throw in Joey Logano. Joey Logano has been having a tough season, and remember when we had gotten him after that win, and he had said that he feels like he's in contention to win every race, and he really hasn't been. I'm tempted to throw Tyler Reddick's name into there too, but I'm not. Like, you have to whittle this down. So I'll kind of hang around the bottom and say McDowell. I am throwing Blaney in there. He's 12th, I think, in the standings out of the 16th, so it's not a huge shakeup. And then the other two would probably be chalk. I'll probably have to agree with you and go with Stenhouse. And it breaks my heart, but Kevin Harvick really hasn't done much, so I'd probably go chalk with Kevin Harvick also. Yeah, so, and it's a shame. Like, I'm really hoping that Kevin would have been able to grab a win in his final season. I just don't know if I'm going to have that luxury to see it. And then how do you have your top 4 going into the playoffs?
It's pretty chalky as well, but I will say it's not without some concern. So William Byron is my pick to win the championship as of this moment. Mm-hmm. That being said, I think he's the only Hendrick car in the championship 4. I have 2 Joe Gibbs cars with Denny and Martin Truex rounding it out, and then my 4th car in is Kyle, but not Kyle Larson. Like I said, I'm only taking 1 Hendrick car. I'm taking Kyle Busch. But I have some serious concerns with that. I mean, both Kyles, if you look at the list of the 16 drivers in the playoffs, these guys, the Kyles lead. Kyle Busch has 5 DNFs. Kyle Larson has 6. Kyle Busch has been running he looks like he's not at the peak of his season where he was previously earlier this year. So I'm concerned, but he's proven himself in this new equipment and that he can do it on multiple variety of tracks. So Kyle Busch is my number 4, and then I'd probably have Denny 3, Truex 2, and William Byron in P1 for who I expect to win the championship. I'd like to see what Denny can do in the championship 4. Hopefully, maybe he gets his first championship this year. So that's a storyline I'm rooting for and going to be following. So Denny's in my final 4, as well as his teammate Truex, and then Byron, as I said, is my championship favorite. And then rounding out with Kyle Busch. I wouldn't hate seeing Kyle Larson get in there because I have futures on Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, and William Byron to win the championship. So if those 3 could make it, and then I'm wrong about the other 2, I would be cool with that as well. But Large, what do you got in your top 4?
I still have the future on William Byron. That was the only one that I had taken after that second win. I believe I jumped on him, so it's still plus 850. I don't think you can get that anymore. So, yeah, I guess for now, until we start to see how people are running in these playoffs. But Byron has wins on a couple of these playoff tracks, so he should be on everyone's top 4. I mean, for a reason, right? He's point leader and he has the most wins. Yeah, so that's as chalky as they get. But I'm going to say him. I agree with you with Denny Hamlin. I would love to see this be Denny's year. I would love to see that be Denny's year. And we're a little biased because we enjoy having him on the show, and I can just imagine how fucking cocky he would be if he came on the show after finally winning a chip. So I'm almost just rooting for that for it. I'm a big momentum guy, so I'm tempted. I like what I see from Brad K, and having a 1-2 punch like that, a shake and bake like that, is tempting. But I don't know. So I'll go Byron Hamlin. I'm not going to take Kyle Busch. I'm going to take Kyle Larson. Byron Hamlin, and then I have Martin in my fourth. I have Martin in my fourth spot, and I have Larson ahead of him.
You sure you don't want to sub out Truex for like Buescher? I know you're kind of against taking Truex.
Yeah, I can't bet Truex, so I won't do that. So yeah, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should take the jinx off of Martin and take Buescher in his spot. But that's because I'm a fucking psychopath. So I'll do Byron, Hamlin, Larson, and Buescher. I'll do that as the top four. Okay, so before we go into our picks for this weekend, in particular for this weekend's race, we have just one more ad. We have a new sponsor in, and it's Factor. Factor is when those busy fall season days are about to come up with the kids back in school and whatnot, you might be looking for some convenient meals that you can just pop in and eat. Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. It can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. Too busy with your end-of-summer goals to cook, but you want to make sure you're eating well? With Factor, you can skip that extra trip to the grocery store and the chopping and the prepping and the cleaning up while getting the flavor and nutritional quality that you need. So refresh your healthy habits without missing a beat. You can choose from 34 plus weekly flavor-packed dietitian-approved meals, and they're ready to eat in 2 minutes. Level up with some Gourmet Plus options prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in record time, so you can treat yourself to upscale meals with premium ingredients like broccolini, leeks, truffle butter, and asparagus. And if you're looking for calorie-conscious options ahead of the busy season, maybe that's me, try delicious dietitian-approved calorie-smart meals that are around or less than 550 calories per serving. So this August, you can get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered right to your door, ready in just 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. So you can head to factormeals.com/rubbin50, and then use the code rubbin50 to get 50% off your order. That's rubbin50 at factormeals.com/rubbin50 to get 50% off. I will tell you that I send these down to my kid. So I have a kid who's in college, and he's in an apartment. It's his sophomore year, so he's no longer on a meal plan or anything. And instead of me paying for him to go to Chipotle 5 times a week, we send him down these Factor meals, and it is perfect. So go to factormeals.com/rubbin50 and use code rubbin50 to get 50% off nutritious meals that are ready in just 2 minutes. All right, so picking the tires. Who do we like this week, Spider? Who's on Spider's card? I didn't get any picks from Quicks.
Yeah, so I got 2 this week, and I don't see odds for it, but I'm going to give you a third that's not going to be in my card, but you should maybe consider taking. So The first one, Denny Hamlin plus 800. He finished here second last year. Second behind Eric Jones, which I felt, not a knock on Eric Jones, but that was just kind of, I don't know, that seemed like an anomaly to me. So I'm going off the race results that I saw last year, and Denny was second. Also, my second pick is going to be Kyle Busch plus 1,300. So Kyle Busch, he's driving the 8 car now, last wheeled by Tyler Reddick, who finished third here in the Southern 500 last year. So I think the 8's going to have speed, and you guys know, as I just said, how I feel about Kyle Busch's playoff chances. I think he's going to kind of get back on top, as we saw earlier this season, and I think it could start with a win this season. My third pick, which I don't have odds for, is Eric Jones, top 10. Guy won the race last year. And sometimes it just seems like we get, despite it being a playoff race, there's always those guys that come in and make a lot of noise despite having being on the outside and not being in the playoffs. So Eric Jones stealing a win last year, I think he could finish top 10 again here this year, if not higher. If you guys want to take top 5, check that out. Like I said, I don't see the odds for it right now, but I'm sure as we get closer to the race.
I got him. I got your Eric Jones top 10 right now is even money. Okay,
well, I think that's worth a sprinkle.
Mm-hmm.
What is it, top 5? Do we have that?
I do. I got it all for you. So the Barstool Sportsbook had just put them up since we started. They weren't up when we started doing it, so they must have hit sometime afternoon or so. So Eric Jones, I will look for him. He's plus 350 for a top 5.
Wow, that might be worth a little sprinkle. I don't know. I think I'll stick with the top 10 and even money, but
okay.
That is probably worth a look.
Let me ask you something. So give it to me again. So Eric Jones, even money, top 10. Denny Hamlin to win, and Kyle Busch to win. Those are the 3.
Denny's plus 800, Kyle's plus 1,300.
And to the top 10. How about Austin Dillon? How about Austin Dillon for a top 10 finish at plus 550? How about Ricky Stenhouse for a top 10 finish? Don't you think Ricky might be able to slide in there for a top 10 at plus 350? The top 10s are coming at me this week, Spider.
I like Ricky way more than Austin Dillon in that one. Austin Dillon finished here 17th last year. Stenhouse he didn't even finish. He was 35th, but
right.
At least he's in the playoffs, and I think if I'm going to take a shot in the dark, I might as well put it on the dark horse, Ricky Stenhouse. So I'm not really feeling those, to be honest with you.
How about a top 5 finish? Chase Elliott plus 220. That's kind of tempting too, no?
I would like that closer to like 250 or 300.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. You know what? There's a bunch. So, and the head-to-head matchups are wild too. Buescher versus Harvick, Elliott versus Keselowski, and Kyle Busch versus Chris Bell. Boys. You would, right?
Yep.
Keselowski's minus 130. Buescher is even.
And then Christopher Bell, I need a little bit more from him as well. I know he's in a pretty decent spot in terms of where he stands. What is he? He's 7th in the playoffs right now, but he's another guy that I was expecting to have made a little bit more noise this season, and here we are in the playoffs and still kind of hasn't. So I don't know.
Right, you know what I'm going to do, Spider?
What do you got?
I'm going to go top 3 finish because I can't find winners. I'm going to go top 3 finish, and I'm going to take I think I'm going to take Brad Kay at plus 450. That's 2 weeks in a row I'm taking Brad Kay. And he broke my heart last week. I will never bet on Brad Kay again if he doesn't get me a top 3 finish in Darlington. That's my vow to you. On a top 5 finish with, I don't know. I think I might take Ricky Stenhouse Jr. plus 350 on a top 10 finish.
I love it.
On a top 10 finish. And then I'll pick a winner, which I haven't been able to do. But, you got a guy who's number 1 in points. He's won here before. I know it was, he won under circumstances or whatever. He's number 1 in points. He's got the most wins. He has some momentum because he has those wins, a couple of them late in the season. And yet he's the 4th shortest odds. Like, I think William Byron at plus 850 to win. I'll grab that. So I'll grab Byron to win on top of that. So that's 3 bets from both of us, and then we'll get a couple from Quiggs. That's it. You got anything else?
No, that's all I got. Pumped to watch the playoffs, and should be some drama coming in to us very soon here, so I'm very excited for that.
All right, so keep an eye on the blog. I'm going to put something up with some of NASCAR's historic crashes. We'll keep an eye out for Spider and I in Barstool Outdoors, which should hit in a couple of weeks. And I was trying to give Spider a softball, but what I want everybody to do is I want everybody to tune into Barstool's Most Dangerous Game Show.
Oh,
because Spider's in there, and he's a sneaky son of a bitch. So, I mean, we're talking about people with momentum and, wily veterans. Keep your eye on this son of a bitch, right? I don't know what happens. I don't want to know what happens. I know everyone was sworn to secrecy, but I sort of like Francis in that because I thought Francis, might be one of those guys who figures out like a puzzle, and I like Spider going into this. So we'll see what happens. That's Barstool's Most Dangerous Game Show I've only seen one episode of it so far, and they threw Spider out of a plane. They told Dana that he was too fat to fly. And so I think it's only going to get wilder from there. So tune into that because we like to cross-promote. And that's it this week from Rubbing His Racing. We'll see you guys after Darlington.
Shout out Mamba for filling in on the pod in my absence while we were in the woods filming that show. And also one more shout out to our guy Brooks from NASCAR Marketing, who got us into the suite, the France family suite, I believe it was, on Saturday at Daytona. So big shout outs. Tune in to Most Dangerous Game Show. Don't miss it. A lot of good stuff coming in there. Good drama. Good reality TV, and those episodes drop every Tuesday for the next month. So go catch up on the one that dropped yesterday or 2 days ago, depending on when you're listening. And then tune in next week, next Tuesday, 7 p.m., and don't miss it. Poll for Spider. We need Spider Army live in the comments.
We need a Spider Army coming up. So I'll retweet it. Obviously, Spider will too. And I will talk to you guys next week.
Yes, sir.